Monsters Inc. Scare Island, or Scream Team in America, or Monster Academy in Japan, Jesus, there's a lot of different names, is a Disney 3D platform game released in 2001 in the US, then finally being released in Europe in 2002. Usually as a kid when I see a Disney game in shelves, I'm immediately all in to get it. I think there was a point in time where I wanted to get all the Disney games on PlayStation 1 because there were so many of them. And again, I was a huge Disney nerd back in the time. The movie itself was pretty good, few problems here and there, but there was always going to be some issues. And Monsters University, well, I don't know if anyone wanted a prelude to Monsters Inc., so meh. But we're not here to discuss the movies, we're here to talk about the video game. But before we start, there's something I need to point out. When it comes to video games based on movies, they're usually not fantastic. Some of them are good, while most of them fall into either average or just plain mediocrity. So, I guess time will tell how I feel about this game. Let's see if this game is still worth replaying as we take a look at Monsters Inc. Monster Scare Academy Island Scream Team. We start off with Mike and Sully finally making it to the big time in Monsters Incorporated. Sully can't wait to get started, but Mike, however, is feeling a little bit nervous.
I can't do this. I'm too nervous. And you building up the situation like this is not helping.
Relax, Mikey. Remember what happened on our first day of college.
Oh yeah, I remember what you did back in college. Who could forget? I remember you being a total asshole to Mike Wazowski as he was getting good grades, and you ruined his chances and dreams of being a scarer. Isn't college great? But once Mike mans up, they both proceed to enter the building. The checkout lady tells the two in order to officially join, they need to complete a total of I'm sorry, how many?
While you are here, the two of you will work together to complete a total of 15 trials.
Wait a minute. So, how many trials again?
15 trials.
So, 15 trials?
That's right, 15 trials.
Oh, whew. Thanks for that. I was getting a little bit confused for a minute. They have to take part in 15 trials, which acts as a tutorial for the entire game, and the tutorial is so boring. It only goes on for 10 minutes, but it feels like 30 minutes instead. You pretty much learn the basics. The jump, double jump, attack button, pouncing, that sort of thing. I wouldn't say the tutorial section is terrible, as there is one thing that saves it, and that is the funny sarcasm from Roz.
Amazing. Fantastic. Great. You made it. You're doing really well. Congratulations. We're all really impressed.
But once the tutorial is done, you'll get a cutscene from Henry J. Watermoose, and after that, you're on your own. The graphics in this game, well, they haven't really aged well, have they? Look, while the game does look outdated, doesn't mean that it's ugly. Of course not, because I can see some good details within the game. The colors are nice and the animation is spot on. Which brings me to the level designs, and they're okay as well. Some are good to look at, while other times they can look a bit weird, but nothing too distracting. You have a hub world to explore and 3 sections to select. Each section has 4 levels featuring urban, desert, and snow. Urban features the city, playground, dock, and the market. Desert has the Spinnex, Oasis, the Tomb, and the Pyramid. Snow contains the Shack, Ski Lift, Iceberg, and the Hot Springs. If I had to choose my favorite, it would have to be the desert, mainly because of the puzzles. It's not hard, but it does take some focus out of you. Now, believe it or not, one of the things I loved to do in Scare Island as a kid is give Eva Michael Sully a shower. Don't judge me, okay? The gameplay sees you either deciding to play as Mike or Sully and explore around the level collecting enough primordial ooze to scare the nerves. From lowest to highest, you have blue, green, yellow, orange, then finally red. Once you have scared 5 nerves in a single level, you'll obtain the bronze medal. Win the bronze medal 4 times, and you'll unlock some special abilities for your characters, like trampolines, dashing, and portals to go from one place to another. And in order for you to get the silver and the gold medals, you do have to unlock these abilities. Which means, if you want to complete the game 100%, you will have to do some backtracking. Which is one of my pet peeves in a video game, mind you. But I will say that the backtracking here isn't annoying like Crash Mind Over Mutants. Usually you go to different parts of the level you haven't explored yet, and it is really nice to check it out. Both Mike and Sully have the same controls, but they do play differently. Sully can use the pounce to land on his belly, and that's pretty much it. Mike, on the other hand, can pounce, landing on his butt, but if you hold the button down, Mike can do it repeatedly and doesn't take a break. Mike can also stay in mid-air for a short time after a jump, so jumping from a long distance to another platform becomes much easier to land. I have to say Mike is a much more better character to play as rather than Sully in my opinion. The controls are meh. That's pretty much all I can say. Don't get me wrong, it does feel responsive, but sometimes you could swear that you made that platform but didn't, and the same can be said when you hit an enemy, but it treats itself as you have hit thin air. When it comes to the nerves, both Mike and Sully, depending on which character you play as, scares the living shit out of them, and I always love to replicate the two. Sully scares are frightening and very scary. So, let's see how Mike holds up. Well then. Mike's scares is weird, odd, and corny, and for some reason, I love it. I don't know why, but I love it. Mike is just hilarious when he tries to scare the nerves, and honestly, I prefer Mike's scare taunts over Sully's any day of the week.
Booga, 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 booga.
Mike Wazowski invented twerking. Oh, by God, he invented twerking! Oh, wait a minute, I already did that joke before. One of the things I love about the nerves is they just don't stand around and wait to get scared. Sometimes they'll do different stuff to pass the time, like building a sandcastle, or playing with a beach ball, or running away from you. And here's a nerve just lying on the snow by himself and enjoying the wonderful sky up above. Then all of a sudden Sully comes around and he's all like, "Arr!" And believe it or not, but towards finishing the game, I haven't come across a vehicle level. I know, it's strange, right? Usually in every platform game, they always have some sort of vehicle transportation, and they try to claim themselves as platformers, but they're not fully a 100% platform game. But in Scare Island, I have not seen one vehicle in this game. You know, it just goes to show that in order to be a platform game, you have to show yourself that you are a platformer by doing some platforming and not jumping in a slippery, boring, and oh, wait a second, Sully just jumped in a snowboard. And that does count as a vehicle level. So, Never mind. And plus, the snowboard is tough to control, and at the end of it, some text popped up on the screen and said if I wanted to try again. And after reading it, it got me thinking on what happened if I actually went to the other direction instead. Maybe the snowboard would control okay if I did that. So just for curiosity's sake, I selected no, because I hate this fucking thing! And now we reach to the point of every platform game ever. It's time to talk about the bosses. The only boss you face in the entire game is Randall. Now, for a game that's based on Monsters Inc., where you scare people, you would think that the boss fights would be focused on scaring. Well, what if I told you that the boss challenges you face against Randall are actually boss races? Yep. You weren't expecting that, did you? The boss races overall are really fun. The way to win the race is to not only win in first place, but you also have to collect enough tokens as well. Randall does make it a fair race at first, until you get to Arctic Pursuit.
You fucking cockhead!
The races are nice and designed very well. What's really cool about these races is you have to take paths, but each one has a consequence. Choose this path and it'll be more quicker, but there's no tokens to be seen. Choose this other path and there's more tokens, but the route would take longer. And it's a split decision as well, so you can't wait around and decide where to go, making it even more tense. And if you come in second place, fall off, or don't get enough tokens, you just have to start the race again. But if I had to say what's the best part about this game, it's an easy answer, and that is the soundtrack. The music in this game is extremely catchy and nice to listen. Every beat, every instrument just complements the levels even more. But why should I keep talking about it when I should let you hear a few examples instead? If I had to say what's my favorite song in this game, it would have to be The City, as it just sounds so fucking catchy. But the only downside to the soundtrack is that no music plays when you're in the hub area. When you think of other hub areas in video games like Super Mario 64, Spyro the Dragon, or even Battle for Bikini Bottom, they all have a very nice soundtrack for those hub worlds. And in Scare Island, it is a little bit of a disappointment that there's no music while exploring around this hub world. I have said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. If you have children or someone young that you know who wants to start playing video games, this game is a good start. The soundtrack is fantastic, the level designs are nice, and the boss races are fun. But despite all of the positives I have around Scare Island, I still see it as an average game at the end of the day. That doesn't mean it's a bad game, but the flaws in Scare Island can be noticeable. The graphics overall are good to look at, but they are pretty outdated, there's sometimes annoying backtracking, and without completing the game for 100%, this game can be beaten in around 2 hours, making the experience short. I will say that this game has a nice charm in its own unique way, and I would recommend trying the game out if you enjoyed the good old PlayStation 1 platforming era, or just a fan of the movie Monsters Inc. But I know what you're thinking. Does this intro even have a point? Well, I have no idea. Maybe I'm just trying to come up with excuses so I don't have to review Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise. This is really interesting because this is one of my childhood games, and as you know, a lot of opinions about a childhood game can indeed change. But before I even get started on talking about this game, I have a little housekeeping to do first. Last year after the re-reviews, Trouble in Paradise was going to be the next review as part of the Gaming Critic. And believe it or not, that video was actually done. All edited and all ready to be uploaded. The problem was, I was not happy with the results. Looking back at it, the comedy was a hit and miss, the video felt rushed to me, and the overall presentation was not up to the standards you guys and gals expected of me. So I decided to cancel the review, take a break from making videos, and never wanted to review that game ever again. Only because it would damage my brain due to going through all the process all over again. That was until a month ago when I had a conversation with my sister that went something like this.
Hey, are you going to give up YouTube and start making a living for yourself for once?
Then I was like,
Nah. I think I'll try out YouTube for another year and see where it takes me.
Then she was like,
Well, in that case, can you at least review Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise for me? Because you promised that you would.
Then I was like,
No way, man. There is no way I'm reviewing that game. It'll be the death of me.
Then she was like,
Would you do it for a Scooby snack?
and I was like,
Okay then.
and that brings us to this video. Before the game starts, we get greeted with the Blitz Games logo. They're responsible for making this game and have made other great titles like Bratz the
Movie game.
But anyway, we get to the main menu where Lilo is waiting for us.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh hi Lilo, I'm doing great and how about you? I need friends. The menu layout is pretty easy and simple to navigate, and the movie cutscene quality is not too bad. Already we're on to a good start, but why do I always get this feeling that every time I say that, there's always something bad lurking around the corner? We start off the game and the animation is alright as well. Nani comes over and tells us some important information.
Listen, Lilo, I've got to go to work now, so I'll meet you in town at 1 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
Now, remember this, boys and girls, because this is crucial to the entire game. I'm joking. They never mention this again. And this is the last time you see Nani in this game. Oh, fiddlesticks. As for the story, it does follow the movie story. Well, sometimes at least. From where Lilo and Stitch becomes friends, to get into kidnapping Lilo, and Stitch comes to rescue her. While the game does follow certain plot points from the movie, but at times, it will go off into another direction and does its own thing, and we'll get to that later. But for now, it's time to talk about the gameplay. Now, from what you're seeing, this does remind me of another classic PS1 platform game I remember playing back in the day. And I think this is a great opportunity to include a game show I always wanted to try. Hello everyone, and welcome to Trivia Question, the show where I ask you the questions and you deliver the answers. Now, today's question is when you look at Lilo and Stitch's Trouble in Paradise's gameplay, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Think this over, and I'll get back to you in a second. Got your answer? Well, if you said this game reminds you of Crash Bandicoot, then no fucking shit. So, if you realize by now, Trouble in Paradise is almost identical to the Crash Bandicoot formula. And mind you, the last Crash Bandicoot game as a platformer on PS1 was released in 1998, while Trouble in Paradise was released in 2002. A 4-year gap before Blitz Games decided that they wanted to make a game similar to Crash. Don't believe me? Well, let's check out some gameplay features that is comparable to Crash Bandicoot. The plant enemy, the porcupine enemy, the TNT crate, even though they're barrels, but still, they're bright red and you can take damage from them. Running away from something, the 2D side-scrolling,
etc., etc., etc.
However, I don't want to make this as a big complaint. It is okay to take at least some inspirations from a classic game, and as long as the gameplay is great, then I have no issues. Right? Right. Right. Throughout the game from start to finish, you can play as both Lilo and Stitch. Wait a second. You're telling me that you can play as not only Lilo, but Stitch as well? When I heard that you can play as both of these characters as a kid, this made me so happy. Well, let's just see if they are good to play, just as I remembered. Lilo's gameplay sees you using your voodoo doll, picking up and storing TNT barrels, using your bum bash, and summoning that guy who eats ice cream and squashes his enemies. I'm sorry, I actually don't know what his name actually is, so I'll guess for now I'll call him Jim. Cause Jim's a motherfucking boss. And at times, Jim the ice cream guy will even be a threat to Lilo, and hell, he'll even decide to kick Lilo, which is an act of child abuse, might I add. Stitch's gameplay sees you spitting acid, spinning, haha, even more bum bashing, and rolling around the dirt like the dirty animal that he is. Yeah, I could watch that all day. By filling up the meter at the bottom left corner, Stitch activates it and you roll around for a limited amount of time. However, I'm not a huge fan of this power-up, mainly because of the controls. It can be hard to control and this type of power doesn't really fit into the levels. Later on, we see Mr. Bubbles and he gives us some crucial information.
I see. Well, why don't you try leading by example and go home like a good girl?
Okay.
Okay, that is some noteworthy info, but remember everybody, we have to meet Nani at 1 o'clock. And speaking of controls, the controls for Lilo and Stitch as platformers are okay, but not exactly the best controls in a video game. Sometimes you'll get cheat deaths like what I got when I clearly made that jump, but the game just says, "Like a somebody, fuck you, bitch," and gave me an instant death. Same thing with the level designs, they're nice to look at and they're definitely not ugly by any means, but they are kind of bland and there's not much life within those levels. And what makes this even more disappointing is that for a Disney game, you would think there should be at least some creativity in those levels, but the levels instead looks pretty empty. One thing that bothered me was the TNT barrels, as the timing when they explode is all over the place. Sometimes they explode in 3 seconds, but other times they explode in 2 or even 1 second. I know it may sound nitpicking, but come on. A little bit of fucking consistency would be nice. And if you think that was nitpicking, then check this shit out. When you accidentally fall into the water, the game will spawn Lilo and Stitch right near the edge of the water. Meaning that if you take a tiny step forward, you're most likely going to fall into the same water path again. But if there is one thing that's good about Trouble in Paradise, it has to be the soundtrack. Most of the songs are pretty generic, but there are some good ones in here. Some of them are catchy and quite enjoyable to listen to. The collecting in this game is sorta a mess if you ask me. The main collectibles changes every now and then, with grabbing 16 photos, then 16 disc records, then 16 tracking devices in order to progress into the game. Both Lilo and Stitch have their own side items to collect. Stitch collects coffee cups while Lilo collects flowers. And pineapples. And coins. And coconuts, you get the idea. She collects everything she sees. She might even take your soul if she feels like it.
Okay.
And now, this brings us to the bosses. Only this time around, there's only 2 types of bosses. The mini bosses and the actual bosses. So, let's start off with the mini bosses. They're the pure definition of wasting valuable time. Before you go into a new level, they show up to block your path and you have to defeat them to move on. They are probably one of the worst mini bosses I ever came across in my life as a video gamer. They last no more than 1 minute, and the way to beat them is the same way. Wait for them to turn around and then you can hit them. They even have a giant circle on the back so you know where to hit. While the designs do look different, but gameplay wise, you will never die against these fuckers because it's the same pattern. And what bothers me the most about them is they just lay around in different places, and yet Lilo and Stitch, out of all the people living in the island, are the only people that interacts with the mini bosses. But then, we get to the actual bosses. It's up to here where the developers said, oh shit, we need to follow the movie's plot somehow, so let's have Myrtle of all people as the first boss and have her as a boss race.
Shut up and take my money!
The first boss is fine. It's not the first time I've seen a boss race, and it definitely won't be the last. But all in all, the boss race against Myrtle is very easy, not too much challenge, and honestly, kinda a terrible excuse for a boss. The second boss is Jumper, and the way to beat him is to run away. Yeah, nothing really interesting to say here, but I will say that his laser shots are so damn accurate. For every time he shoots at you, you have to jump and avoid his attacks. It's a pretty weird difficulty spike if you ask me. The next boss is everyone's favorite CIA agent, Mr. Bubbles. And again, the way to beat him is running away. And I'm sorry, but not even the brilliant voice acting from this lad here doesn't save it from being a good boss overall. Well, maybe except this. And the final boss being, of course,
Dancer.
And he is exactly the same as Jumper. You run away from him while avoiding his laser attacks. I will say that this is the best boss in the game, mainly because of the challenge it brings, but without dying, the final boss can take around 90 seconds to beat. Overall, the bosses in Trouble in Paradise don't really feel like bosses. 25% of the bosses is in a boss race, but 75% of the bosses consist of running away. So once you beat Gantu, the final cutscene from the movie shows up, and it just ends. Finished. Done. It's over. Or in other words, fuck off. And when the credit shows up, that means I'm done with this game. Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise is the perfect definition of a hit and miss. I guess they never miss, huh? Damn it! I can't help but to think this game was only developed just for a cash-in. All this game is a very simple 3D platform game with not too much challenge and nothing too exciting about it. The soundtrack sounds nice and the level designs are okay, but really, those are the only good praises I have about this game. The controls are not the best, the bosses are a waste of time, and even though I said I wouldn't complain about Trouble in Paradise being inspired by Crash Bandicoot, but keep in mind that in order for your game to stand out, you need to try something different instead of relying on a popular game, otherwise you could be labeled as a copycat. Kinda like Mighty No. 9 as a copycat of Mega Man, for example. The only way for me to recommend this game is that you either grew up with the game or you just so happen to love the movie. Definitely not a mediocre game by any means, but it's also not a good game as well. Oh man, Finding Nemo. Such a great film with memorable characters and an awesome story. From where Lilo gets tired of his dad's ways and getting kidnapped, to Marlin having the determination by his side, and with the help of Dory, saves his son. I could watch this movie all day and night and never get exhausted from it. But, as per usual, for every time a popular movie shows up, a video game based on the movie is sure to follow. But did you know the Finding Nemo game was actually released before the movie dropped in cinemas? Well, apparently they did, because they thought the game would sell well. And it did, selling a ton of copies and receiving a PlayStation 2 Platinum release. So if it is true, then this game should be a standalone classic. Or will it be an overhyped disappointment? Well, let's not waste any more time and dive right into the game. Get it? Get the joke? Cause fishes dive into water, and that's what we're going to do. Dive into the game. Well, for starters, unlike Trouble in Paradise, the Finding Nemo game follows the movie pretty well, going through all the major plot points that happened throughout the adventure. Definitely onto the right path so far. And I'm pretty curious, who was the masterminds behind this brilliant idea? Traveler's Tales. The same people that made The Wrath of Cortex. Okay, fine, I'll sit back down and give them another chance. Cause after all, they did make Crash to Insanity, and that was a fun game, mind you. You might notice that I'm brushing off the story, and I am, because the story in this game is exactly what you'll expect from the movie. And plus, I'm sure most of you have seen Finding Nemo one too many times that you know what happens from the back of your mind. So before we can start the game and check out the first level, we need to go through the loading screen. God damn it! I remember these loading screens as a kid. They were atrocious and went on for far too long. Well, bring that timer up and let's see if it beats Secret Agent Clank as one of the longest loading screens I ever witnessed.
Nemo.
Wait, what? It actually loaded less than 10 seconds? But I could swear that it took ages just to load into a level. I don't know, maybe it's because I wasn't patient enough as a kid, or maybe it's because I have a better copy of the game. But anyway, let's move on. Going into the first level playing as Nemo, and it treats itself as a tutorial section. Learning how to use the controls, grabbing and moving objects, and attacking enemies. Throughout the first level, Nemo, with the guidance of Marlin, sees a few potential friends. Tad the obnoxious fish, Sheldon who is H2O intolerant, and how are you still alive if you're allergic to water, and the sweet innocent Pearl who accidentally gets lost. Nemo rescues Pearl, and in return, she shits out a... Pearl? I don't really know, but what's weird is that she doesn't hand it to Nemo or throws it, she literally shits it out. Apparently a giant clam is in the way, and we use that pearl, no, the other pearl, to bring it to the clam in order to progress. Now, you could do that option, or you can just swim around it, because you are a fish, after all. But because we have to follow the game's instructions, we give the pearl to the clam and move on. Wait a second. What did Marlin just did back there? Oh, you son of a bitch! Couldn't be bothered going around the clam, but yet you feel like going around this object? Okay. Calm down, Cheese. It's probably a one-time thing, so, let's move on. So we continue on the level, and all of a sudden, Rock shows up out of nowhere, and we need to get through.
Here, let me do it, Nemo.
That is a really disturbing kiss face.
Oh, gee, I can't move him. Oh, well, we'll have to go home now.
Just swim around the rocks. Swim around the fucking rocks, you fucking lazy cunt!
Okay, it feels like half of my notes is going towards the first level, which is extremely unfair for the entire game. So, let's check out some other gameplay features. The gameplay switches every now and then with 2D sections, 3D sections, and being able to play as Nemo, Marlin, and Dory. Each level has different tasks to complete, including moving the colored objects to its correct destination, jumping on all of the sponges, and going through all the rings. Kinda like Superman 64. But with fish. Super Fish 64. If you successfully complete a task, you'll be rewarded with a special gold star. Wish I had a gold star back at school. The graphics do look okay comparing to the PlayStation 2 version, but occasionally it can look a bit bland. Sometimes it can look a little bit grey and doesn't really have the best details in an underwater game. The level designs are okay as well. As previously mentioned, the levels do follow the movie, but throughout the game, some of the levels are not fun, and trust me, we will get to them pretty soon. Another move that only Nemo can perform is the infinite spin. By going inside the By going inside one of the plants, Nemo comes out and performs the spin attack, being invincible for a limited amount of time. What's weird is that it only shows up once or twice in the entire game, making it almost pointless. Everyone's health bar consists of collecting krill. They protect you in case of swimming into danger, and if you get hit without a krill, you'll get an instant death. Kinda like Sonic and the Rings when you think about it. Later on in the game towards level 3, it's up to here where the game stops holding your hand, and we get introduced to the boat scene. This is definitely a huge highlight from the movie. Let's watch.
Come on, Nemo! How far can you go? My dad says it's not safe.
You know you can't swim well!
Okay, first of all, that scene between Nemo and Marlin felt rushed to me. And I know it's only a video game, but they could have at least added more dialogue to keep the tension rising. And secondly...
No, you can't swim well!
The way how Marlin said that almost makes it like he wants to have his way with you. Oh god, stay away from my butt, Marlin. No, stay the fuck back! I don't think nothing will ever be disturbing as what I just saw.
Hey, kids!
Okay, maybe accept that. But much like Trouble in Paradise, the one thing I do like about this game is the soundtrack. Again, not the best soundtrack in a video game, but there are a few nice ones to listen to. Finding Nemo also presents a few puzzles as well, but unfortunately, the puzzles are not that good. Why? Because of the sliding puzzles. They are not only annoying, but they're also a terrible excuse to add puzzles in a video game. But what's pretty interesting for a game based on the movie is nearly all the voice actors are here, including Alexander Good voicing Nemo and William Dafoe voicing Gil. William Dafoe? More like William Dufresne. Okay, I should really stop with these puns. It feels like every voice actor from the movie is right here in your video game console.
It's alright, I understand. Why trust a shark, right?
Is it just me, or did Bruce sounded different just then?
Careful, my little tidbits. You don't want to be popping any of them balloons. It'd be bad for your health, mate, and mine.
Okay, so time to talk about the actual levels. Like I said, there are some levels I do like. For example, the jellyfish race. I like how you have to use the jellyfishes to try and get ahead, and I also like the submarine level on how you have to avoid getting eaten by Bruce, and the transition from 3D to 2D is pretty smooth. But however, there are some levels I cannot stand in Finding Nemo. Some of them go on for what feels like forever, and the main objectives to do are meaningless that it becomes nothing but filler. Catch Dory is an example of being a pointless level. The idea is to swim through the rings Dory drops, increasing your speed, and the way to win is to catch up to Dory 3 times. I just feel this level could have been something more better. Another one I'm not a fan of is hide and seek. All you have to do is find all the fishes in the tank. Sounds pretty simple, but without a guidebook, this goes on way longer than it should have. There's some ridiculous tasks to do to find the other fishes, like doing a side puzzle and knocking down a few bowls just to reveal a character.
No. We must have no mess.
Did he just jizz in the fish tank? But in all seriousness, there is one level that I really hate. And if you thought all the levels were lazy, then check this shit out. Level 4. Damn it. Level 4, Moss Chase. This level to me is the worst. There's a very strong current pushing you around, and if you move too quickly, you could end up getting hit or restarting the level again. Another thing I hate about this level is there's a timer on your head, which means you have to rush to the next section before the time runs out. I want to have a look at the environment and complete the level 100%, but because I have to beat the timer, that's pretty much ignored. Overall, I hate this level, and I pray to God that I never get to go through this again. Wait a second! The moss was right there, Marlon! I remember loving this game as a kid, despite the long loading screens, but playing it now, I did not enjoy my playthrough of Finding Nemo. It's cool to play as Nemo, Marlin, and Dory, but they play exactly the same, and there's not much difference between them. Some of the levels are pretty pointless and can get boring very quickly, and while it's interesting to have both 2D and 3D sections, but I think this game would have been better off as a 2D game. Only because I feel the 3D sections are not really the best way to represent the game. While the soundtrack does sound nice, but unfortunately, it doesn't really carry it to being a good game. All I can say is that the only way for me to recommend this game is if you have played this game before, but other than that, I just can't find a reason to pick this game up. Ah shit, here we go again. Another Disney game that's based off the movie. I remember watching Treasure Planet back in the day, and while it's nothing really special, I do see it as an underrated Disney film. The story I feel is a bit forgettable, but I always like to enjoy watching a movie while listening to the OST. And what do you know? After the movie's release, a video game came out as well. I do remember playing this game as a kid, but I was never really good at it, and I was confused on what I had to do. But now, gaining more knowledge from the gaming gods above, I can hopefully go through this game and give out my thoughts. Could it be the best Disney game I ever played, or does it fall short? Again, much like any other Disney games based on movies, the game does follow the movie. Well, the main parts at least. From Jim wanting to go on an adventure, to finding money in the center of the planet called, and I don't mean this as a pun, Treasure Planet. And with that, we've come full circle. We start the game off with, holy Jesus, what is that? Why are the cutscenes like this? I don't know if my copy is broken or I'm playing through my PlayStation 3, but hopefully I'm not the only one who's experienced this. Well, that's a weird way to start off this review. But then we get to the main menu's music. Well, looks like we'll have to skip the cutscenes, cause obviously they're not working. We begin the game in the town of Benbow on the mining planet of Montresso.
Ah, yes. This is the town of Benbow on the mining planet of
I just fucking said that!
Throughout the game, you play as the main character named Jim, bashing your way through objects, platforming your way to the finish, and competing in races. And you also have Morph by your side, being your companion. Kinda reminds me of Sparks from Spyro the Dragon. If there's one thing I remember about the movie, is Morph can transform into a ton of different bits and pieces. In the video game, Morph can turn into a hang glider, and that's about it. Why couldn't the developers put in more morphing for Morph? The amount of crazy ideas you can think of, like maybe turning into a weapon, or a trampoline, or a vehicle level, actually scratch that, is all down the toilet. I will say that the graphics are okay, not the best I've seen in a PlayStation 1 game, but there is some detail and work put into it that I can appreciate. Around 2 minutes into the game, you'll notice a strange noise every time Jim performs a double jump.
Okay, I will admit, that is probably one of the best jumping noises in a video game.
So what's the gameplay like? Again, for the most part, you will be platforming in levels from start to finish. The platforming itself is, the way how you control and jump Jim around seems a bit too heavy, and honestly feels like I'm walking around in a huge puddle of mud. Jim is a pretty athletic guy, so I don't know why his movements is slow. I know I said that Jim's jumping noise is the best thing ever, but keep in mind that he'll do that noise over and over and over again every time you trigger the double jump, and it can get annoying very quickly. Jim's offense includes using your sword and laser attacks. There are crates to hit, but they'll only explode depending on what type of crates they are. Treasure chest sees you using your laser, barrel sees you using your laser, and crates can be attacked from whatever weapon you see fit. Inside those chests may contain coins and health items. The main collectibles to collect are these pirate-looking tokens, I don't know what they're called, and if you collect enough, you'll be able to progress in the game. Other collectibles also features gems and films.
Just what I was looking for!
Really? Is that what we were looking for this whole time? Not the tokens or treasures? Just those? Well, I guess you can find any household items and claim they are exactly what you've always wanted.
Just what I was looking for!
As for the level designs, they're also pretty. There are only 4 levels in the entire game, and that's extremely small for a 3D platform game. You could argue that each level goes on for 30 to 40 minutes, but none of these levels are interesting or anything fascinating to look at. You can visit the town of Benbow as mentioned earlier, the market, the legacy, and Treasure Planet. If I was locked in a room and I couldn't be released until I had to say what my favorite level was in Treasure Planet, well, I honestly would not answer that question, stay in that room, and forever be stuck until the end of time. Okay, fine, it'll probably have to be the Legacy. I liked how the ship is explorable and you can climb your way to the top, but trying to give this game praise isn't exactly saying much. What's interesting is that depending on how good you play the game, you can actually skip the levels. For example, when you finish level 2, and if you have collected enough tokens, you can skip right past level 3 and move on to level 4. I'm not sure how many people will feel about that, but as for me, I'm fine with it, because the sooner I skip the levels, the quicker I can beat this game and move on with my life.
And also move on to other video games to check out, like Bratz the movie game.
In each level, parts of the level are broken up, and if you want to explore the rest of the level, you'll have to go down in an elevator.
Hello there, boyo. You look like you could use a lift.
No thanks, good sir. I've already got a lift, thanks to our sponsor, Lyft. Yes, we finally have a sponsor for this video. I've sold out. Lyft. It is a sensational lemonade drink that warms your heart. Whenever if you feel sad or you just can't cope with life, Lyft has all the ingredients it needs to lift you right back up. But hey, don't take it from me, here we have a random customer who has tried out Lyft for the very first time. So random customer, what do you think about it? I think think it tastes like absolute dog shit. And that's all the time we have. Back to the review. I swear I'm never going to do this ever again.
I don't know what's more awkward in life. People staring at you in a party after saying something strange, or waiting in an elevator with just one person and no music. I know these elevator sections go on for only 5 to 10 seconds, but man, I always groan every time I see one. If the elevators included music, then I wouldn't exactly have a lot to complain about. I don't think it's that difficult to come up with a short soundtrack for the elevators. Well, you know the saying, if no one else can do it, you gotta do it yourself. And unfortunately, when it comes to doing things myself, they're often cringy as fuck.
Wake me up inside! Wake me up inside!
I can tell I've already lost a few subscribers.
Speaking of music, if there's one good thing about Treasure Planet on PlayStation 1, it's definitely the soundtrack. At times, the music sounds really catchy, and I caught myself humming to the music every now and then. It may sound a bit repetitive because you're listening to the same tone and beat over and over, but I guess that depends on what your type of music is. Every level has some sort of a minigame style gameplay to partake, including saving the gears being stolen by the birds, hitting the rats to make sure they don't eat the fruit, and securing the area from pirates. If you successfully complete a minigame, then you'll obtain a token. The minigames are really not that special. Some of them are just copy clones from another video game. Like here for example, where you have to catch the fruit but avoid the rotten fruit. If you catch at least one rotten fruit, you start all over again. Just by reading the instructions and playing it, it straight away reminded me of Jak and Daxter with the fishes. Another minigame I wasn't that fond of was the Meteor minigame, as you have to shoot the rocks before they impact to the ship. The gameplay here isn't too bad, but the music does not fit this section at all. Jim can also participate in these racing segments. You have to collect the timers to keep the clock going, and if the clock runs out, you lose petrol and eventually fail the race. If you complete the race, you'll win some more tokens, but only depending on what time you finish. Once again, the races here somehow remind me of the Ratchet & Clank races, but in Treasure Planet, you can't perform any tricks. It can be awkward to control, but once you get used to it, the controls for the races here are pretty decent. Even the voice acting is also decent as well. Everyone performed a good job here. Except for Jim. Sometimes he comes off overreacting to certain bits at one point and then not caring about the plot in the other. I don't know if it was Joseph not enjoying the voice acting in the video game, but in the game itself, he kinda comes off as inconsistent.
The area is secure, Captain. Now
oh god, not too loud, Jim! You'll make my ears explode!
And now, here comes the boss. They fucking suck! If I thought that Trouble in Paradise's bosses were lazy and Shrek 2's bosses are cheap, then the bosses here are a joke. There are only 2 bosses in the entire game. There is this saying about quality over quantity, but the execution wise was not that great. The first boss is this spider dude named Scroop, and he flicks the switch, releasing dangerous hazards, and the way to beat him is to throw grenades at him until his health bar is gone. It's not the worst boss battle, but I was kinda expecting a little bit more out of it. And the second and final boss is Silver. Again, he's not the worst boss, but what really kills it for me personally is for the fact that there is no build up towards the final boss. Zero tension, no storyline, nothing. This game expects you to watch the movie and fully know the story inside and out. But what if I'd never heard about this movie before? In one level, they become friends, but in the next, nope, they hate each other, 1v1 me over a slice of pizza. I guess the story can be told by cutscenes from the movie, but again, how am I supposed to figure out what's happening?
So, throughout this 2 to 3 hour adventure... Where the fuck is it? So, throughout this 2 to 3 hour adventure, does Treasure Planet still hold up to this very day?
Well, no, it doesn't. I think the biggest problem Treasure Planet or PlayStation 1 has is this game really focuses on the movie too much and doesn't take any risk. When you think about other games based on movies like X-Men Origins Wolverine, Spider-Man 2, or even my previous review on Shrek 2, they all move over to a different direction and does their own thing. And doing something unique and not following the movie makes the game feel more creative. And that's what Treasure Planet lacks, being creative. The game feels way too short, the bosses are nothing great, and while the graphics are average and while the music sounds really nice at times, but I can't really recommend trying this game out. And besides, there's many other platform games out there with much more creative and replay value rather than this game. Now, when I saw this movie back in 2006, I absolutely loved it. It was an interesting take this time around for a Disney movie where you watch cars race on speedways for the Piston Cup, and they all have emotions and motivations as well. A cocky airhead rookie only cares about winning, then learning to understand that there's more to life than just winning. It was filled with a ton of cool characters, and Mater was there too, but looking back, I had a feeling that this was all just marketing from Disney's side to create merchandise, especially having toy cars. The first movie was good, the second movie I thought flopped, and the third one, while different from my expectations, but at least they went back to their old roots to why the first movie was successful in the first place. And what were the odds when Disney decided to give the green light for a video game based on the movie? Since you have cars and video games coming together into one, of course you have to make a racing game. It was pretty much written from the stars right from the very beginning. Now, I loved this game as a kid. I would spend so many hours playing through this game and crashing into other cars as I drove by.
What's up, Doc?
And I think you know where I'm going with this. Because I played this game back in the day as a kid, that usually means now as an adult and coming back to a childhood game, I'm either going to like it or absolutely hate it because I'm now older and slowly getting wiser. So let that be a lesson to you all. Once you become an adult, everything fucking sucks.
But anyway, I guess the only way to express how I feel about Cars the video game is to... well, you know, play the game.
Also, just keep in mind that I am using my PlayStation 2 emulator for my gameplay recording for the first time in this channel, and it is still a work in progress, just thought I'd let you all know on that. Cars the video game offers story mode, and we'll get straight into that. For difficulty settings, you can either choose full size or compact, and I went for full size cause I ain't a wuss. The story starts with Mater welcoming us to Radiator Springs Grand Prix, which allows recognizable cars and some new faces to join in the fun. After winning the race, it all turns out that Lightning McQueen was dreaming all about it. After waking up, it was time to start training for the big leagues to win the Piston Cup. And that's pretty much it. You compete in races to earn trophies, and with enough trophies, you'll be able to race in speedways. Keep doing this a few times and you'll manage to beat the story. As for how the plot goes, it's pretty simple. I guess I can't really complain too much because realistically, the game is more focused on the gameplay side rather than the story. It does follow the events after the Cars movie, and in a way, this game does feel like a continuation, almost feeling like Cars 2. But it's when you realize the plot here is way better than the actual Cars 2 movie. I will add that the story is a bit all over the place with different side stories, and I would have preferred the story to be focused with just one objective. The in-game cutscenes are well done, but I can't help to think that something is missing.
No, it wasn't any ordinary race, it was the Radiator Springs Grand Prix. And you were in it. And Doc, and Mater was the announcer.
Yeah, I think the majority of the cutscenes feels very quiet without some background music. It could have made those scenes more alive than just feeling like you're in an awkward conversation. But if there is something good here, is that all the actors are voicing their characters in this game, which I think is pretty cool. Every character you know and love is here. Lightning, Chick, Doc, Sally, Ramon, the twins, Mac, and many more. You also have new characters as well, which I do appreciate as it opens up possibilities for interesting personalities. It's almost like you can see these new characters and they blend into the Cars universe pretty well.
Was that supposed to be a foreshadow on Papyrus's laugh from Undertale?
The graphics are fine for its time. They're not the best good looking visuals from what I've seen in other PS2 titles, but you can see some cool Easter eggs that references the movie, so that's nice. But anyways, time to get into the gameplay, starting off with the open world exploration. Cars the video game offers you an open world sandbox map to look around Radiator Springs. You have 3 areas to explore. You have Radiator Springs, of course, then you have Ornament Valley, and finally you have Taflin Pass. It's cool to check out the landmarks from the movie, and you can visit areas like the small town, the oval area, the waterfall area, and that's about it. I am not the biggest fan of the open world here, as to me it feels quite empty. And I know it's located in a desert, so it's supposed to be empty, but what I mean is there's not much detail and it feels like it's not 100% completed. So on your compass you have races and minigames. All of the marked ones will be labeled as white, as in you haven't completed it yet. But once you manage to do so, then it'll be highlighted by a color, signaling that it's already been completed. What I don't like about these is some races and minigames share the same marker, and I find myself at times accidentally clicking on a race I've already done. Then I had to back out, and therefore I'm wasting minutes of my time. It could have probably been my fault that I didn't read properly, but at least they could have added individual markers instead of sharing the same one. Another thing I found weird is that while exploring, I don't see any roads or collectibles on my compass, but yet in a race, somehow there is a road showing me where to go. It feels a bit off to me. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I do like to see what direction I'm taking, especially if I'm going to explore around the sandbox. Overall, besides the Easter eggs, there's nothing too interesting to check out. Well, hey, look on the bright side, at least I can crash into other cars driving by. Hey Philip! Throughout the game as well, you'll come across these lightning bolts you can collect. They're pretty much your currency for the game, and if you have enough, you can unlock characters to play, artwork to see, and movie scenes to witness. I like the unlockable stuff you can buy, and you can even purchase and play as Chick, Hot Wing, and the King, to name a few.
So far, we are not off to a great start in terms of the gameplay, which is pretty strange because of how much I loved this game back in the day. But anyway, let's get our bloods boiling by drinking some caffeine and checking out some races.
I didn't get my latte!
I know exactly how you feel, buddy. So the racing gameplay is pretty simple. You have 3 laps and you try to accelerate to win. Throughout the races, you can also power slide the sharp corners, you can drive backwards as you learn that skill from Mater, and later on you unlock a boost meter that'll allow you to speed up and go faster. You can also earn points by doing certain things in a race, like drifting, jumping, and taking shortcuts to name a few. The racetracks are fine, but they're pretty uninspiring and somewhat lazy, because each race you partake in feels like you've already driven through this section many times before, and it feels repetitive. And in some cases, races can be very similar when you're basically doing the same race again but in reverse, like with Radiator Springs Grand Prix and Sally's Sunshine Circuit, for example. It's just the same goddamn race as before, and again, it does come back to how void the open world map design is. I do, however, enjoy some of the layouts the racetracks and the sandbox map the game offers, like how you have to jump past a huge gap in Taflin Pass. The camera angle is something I'm not a fan of here. You have 3 different types to where the camera places itself, but I think it's either placed too close, too far away, or this weird first person mode which really got me dizzy. But let's talk about power sliding. For some strange reason, the power sliding in Cars the video game is very inconsistent. Sometimes it'll work and other times it won't. How is it that the power sliding works just fine in these segments, But in a turn like this one, it seems like the power sliding just gave up and didn't want to cooperate with me. I tried power sliding so many times here and yet it didn't work once for me. So every time I come up to this part, I have to now slow down using my brakes so I don't end up crashing. But that's not how a fast-paced racing game should be played. How it should be is drifting from corner to corner using your skills to the best of your ability as you accelerate to the finish line. But how can I do that if power sliding is kaput? Hey Sally, give us a kiss! And at times, this game does feel pretty easy, but I'm not going to complain about it too much here because it is a harmless game made for kids and trying to discuss it while being an adult seems pointless. But yeah, if you're pretty advanced in racing games, then you'll have zero issues here. I mean, you'll practically feel like a god in Cars the video game as you win a race by 30 to 40 seconds in front. The only sense of challenge I felt was in the Mater race, but as soon as you understand the layout and once you're in first, the challenge is immediately removed.
But you want to know something that's weird? Check out these statistics. Oh, statistics. Is it statistics? Statistics. Am I even pronouncing that right?
So I actually came second, believe it or not, but the time looked off to me. So this car that ended up being first got a time of 5 minutes and 34.62 seconds. And I came in second, but I however got a time of 5 minutes and 34 and 61 seconds. But yet I ended up placing in second place.
That is some weird Matrix shit going on around here, but anyhow, let's continue on, and holy Jesus! What is that? What kind of face is Lightning McQueen making here?
It's like he couldn't hold on anymore and McQueen decided to nut. So, how do cars actually do it? Well, I don't know, but do you know what they can do? Crash into objects and bump around like you're in Gmod Idiot Box. Yeah, I don't get the whole crash physics here in this game. It just looks very unrealistic, and it's something I can't imagine when I think about cars crashing into areas. Bouncing around like bumper cars smashing into one another is what it looks like to me. There's many other racing games that do crash physics well. For example, here's Crash Team Racing Nitro Fields crashing, here's Sonic Team Racing crashing, and now here's Cars the video game crashing. Other than that, you do have mini games to complete like Mater's Tractor Tipping, which is surprisingly fun to join in. You also have Luigi fighting his tires, and you have Sarge's challenge course to name a few. I would say that I like the mini games here. It brings a nice change of pace, so instead of racing all the time, you can just relax and enjoy some downtime. I personally like the high speed heist as the music fitted the mini game well and you have to avoid the traffic. Even though the traffic can be bizarre at times. Grab lightning stuff, okay, sounds easy enough. Ow! Oh, don't get caught by anything else. Gee, thanks game, you could have told me that before I got fucking hit. Let's talk about the music here. The soundtrack sounds fine and it does get you pumped up as you race. It seems the music they chose is pop rock, and I'll admit it's not my personal favorite type of music as I enjoy a more heavier style of rock. But it's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is that there is no Life is a Highway. I mean, come on, it was one of the best songs in the movie, and not being able to have it means I can't jam out to it.
But I will admit, there is at least one song here that I do enjoy. But yeah, if that song sounds very familiar to you, then maybe this game will help jog your memory.
Like I said, the PS2 emulation is still a work in progress. Hey Fillmore, where are my drugs? Once getting enough trophies, you'll be eligible to partake in the speedways. Since the King is retired, the rivalry moves over to Chick versus Lightning. You both go back and forth on which one's going to end up winning the whole series, and surprise surprise, Lightning McQueen ends up winning the Piston Cup. It does feel boring going around in circles, but there are only 5 in the entire game, so I can't get fully mad at it. And plus, the atmosphere with cars in the audience and the announcing from Daryl Cartrip does make it a bit special. You have your fuel meter on the side, and once it nearly runs out, you have to make your way to the pit stop and Guido will help fix Lightning up. The faster you succeed, the more you'll be ahead of your competition. So that's pretty much what story mode has to bring to the table. Of course, in arcade, you can play in races and minigames at any given time, and you can also play in multiplayer. But hey, since I'm playing cars on my computer and since I have 0 friends, I can use my controller and my keyboard at the same time. A win-win scenario from my point of view. I guess the last thing to mention is, well, how do I explain this? I don't know if it's my copy or the emulation's fault, but I received a lot of glitches. Some cars clipping into items, areas don't fully load up correctly, that sort of thing. But I'm not sure if I'll consider it as a bad thing. The glitches are absolutely hilarious and honestly one of the best parts about Cars the video game. Hey Flo, how's it going?
Holy fucking shit! Right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, with the fusion of Lightning McQueen and Flo, we have this abomination.
Okay, that's it. I'm done with this game. I think this is the perfect way to end off this review, so I mean, I'm just gonna get to the verdict.
So after replaying this game for what feels like a long time, I can report that this game didn't exactly age very well. I can appreciate the voice acting and the in-game cutscene animations are nicely done. It does capture the Disney feel, but in all seriousness, this is an average and somewhat unexciting racing game. It's a bit tough for me to say that, but nostalgia has to be thrown out the window if I want to come up with a clear conclusion. The open world is not that great, the controls can feel from playable to frustrating, and the races feel too similar compared to each other. But for a kids game, it's pretty decent, and if you have any children of your own, then this game is a good start to get them introduced to racing video games. But having said that, there are plenty of other racing games worth giving attention to than this game. Childhood. One of the most impactful words to use when describing your personal life. In many ways, getting exposed to a hobby as a child, we think of it as some of the best moments in the world to us. It comes in many shape or forms. Like for example, my childhood TV show to watch is Thomas the Tank Engine. My childhood food is baby custard. Those things are still delicious to eat as an adult, by the way. And my childhood sport would have to be soccer/football, depending on where you say it in your region. As far as my favorite childhood video game is concerned, I do often think about Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. It's the very first game I got to play after all, and I reckon I wouldn't be here making videos in the first place if it wasn't for the Crash Bandicoot series. But there is another game that just screams out childhood to me, and that would be The Emperor's New Groove on the PlayStation 1. Having to say the name and just by looking at the title, it is pretty obvious what game we're talking about today. I absolutely loved the movie as a child, and even to this day, it holds up pretty well in my opinion. So imagine my reaction when my parents got me the video game based on the movie. It probably went something like this.
Even though this is my favorite childhood video game, I am not going to take it easy on it. As always, if I notice something negative or off-putting to me, I will be calling out on it. But yeah, still, I am looking forward to playing this game once again, so yeah, can't wait.
So with the story this game presents, it is identical to the movie. Emperor Cusco rules his palace with an iron fist, gets turned into a llama for his troubles, and now Cusco, along with some help from Pacha, makes his way back to the palace and changes himself back to a human. I'm sure we've experienced this in real life one way or another. We begin to boot the game up and Pacha is staring at Kuzco's butt. You better not be doing what I think you're doing. The game places you in the aftermath of Kuzco realizing he's a llama instead of seeing Kuzco dancing around to his theme song. And there is a major difference in terms of story within the game compared to the movie, and I do believe it's a negative. In the movie, while Kuzco and Pacha are heading back to the palace, Kuzco has a change of heart and learns to be more kind and more respectful to many people surrounding him. But in the game, Kuzco just acts like a dick throughout the entire game, being rude to strangers along the way and poking and making fun of Pacha's weight. I do get it though, without the sarcastic remarks, the game's Kuzco would have been boring. But I guess I noticed this straight away because I love the movie so much that anything I see in the game that translates from the movie, I recognize it immediately. Also, another thing I noticed, there was no Pacha's wife in the game. I believe she served a good purpose in the movie, and it's just weird to not see her in the game. Throughout the game, it constantly breaks the fourth wall with any chance it gets. Yeah, the Jack 3 one was a bit cringy, but the fourth wall breaking here is really noticeable. I believe the movie did this maybe once or twice, and the game itself just loves to put out its fourth wall breaking moments. Don't get me wrong, the writing here is pretty hilarious, and I love it when it's telling you the obvious method on how to get to the next section, and Kuzco just reacts in a sarcastic / childish humor.
Just don't charge around by the tree, okay?
But then again, when it comes to Disney games, the gameplay is where the main focus is. The graphics look okay for its time. It's colourful and nicely presentable. It's not the best PlayStation 1 graphics overall, but I have witnessed a lot worse in my timeline.
As a 3D platformer, the controls is what makes the experience feel great. So, the control handling for Kuzco in the Emperor's New Groove is surprisingly good.
I can confidently move him around knowing that I have control with his jumping and walking him around, and if I fail, then I know it was my fault and not some bullshit excuse. Although there were some moments that I thought to myself that I made that platform but didn't. In the game, you can jump, charge, kick, spit grape seeds, and even do this jump kick while in mid-air, and this is so helpful. When using it, it gives a 1 second pause up in the air, meaning that if I know I missed a platform, I can just use the jump kick and it will take me back to the right direction. This is a very useful feature to use if anyone has played the Emperor's New Groove or is wanting to try this game out. The level designs are pretty good. It follows the events from Kuzco leaving the village to eventually making his way back to the palace to claim his throne. You get to explore around the village, the jungles between night and day, the mountains, the catacombs, and much more. Each level is labeled as chapters. You go from chapter 1, level 1, chapter 1, level 2, and so on until you reach over to chapter 2, level 1. Remember this 30-second scene that features Kuzco and Pacha tied up to a log, floating down the river? Well, how about an entire chapter being dedicated to that subject? That sounds pretty creative. It does follow the journey from the movie quite well. The only thing I will say is that I would have liked to have a minigame of Kuzco and Pacha falling down near a pit full of crocodiles and you have to use the directional buttons to climb back up by working together. But I don't mind if it's not there. It probably would have been complicated to design that feature anyway. Most of the game does have a focus on platforming, but there's other times where you'll witness new gameplay features, like the log as mentioned earlier, running away from jaguars. This was very challenging for me back in the day. I always had to call my father over to help me out back as a kid. I can thankfully do it now on my own, but with the amount of tapping buttons on my controller, my hands got very sore afterwards. Almost like that one night in a hotel room you end up regretting. And you can also do some stealth gameplay as you try to make it from A to B without getting caught by the guards. Doing some Metal Gear Llama, if you will.
Kuzco? Kuzco! Kuzco!
And finally, you have the roller coaster segment as you guide your way down to complete the level. I absolutely hate this part. For starters, it's very slippery to move around, and the faster you go, the tougher it can be to control. It also doesn't give you enough information on how the level structure goes. It only tells you to line up with the corners, and that's it. It doesn't mention anything about turning the coaster around and making the controls inverted. The two kids gave you instructions for other bits and pieces, so why not here? This game includes a charge bar. When collecting 5 coins or 1 gold coin, your charge bar will increase, allowing you to charge. It can run out quickly, so you always have to keep an eye out for these icons to fill your charge meter back up. The main item to find is the red idol. Once collecting them by finishing up a task or seeing them out in the open, you can use them to progress into the level or completing a level. Cusco has a health bar which resembles a crown. Every time you talk shit get hit bruh, you lose part of your health. You can heal yourself by eating some delicious yum-yums.
Yum yum.
But if you lose all your health, you have to start the level again. Thankfully, you can collect Wumpies. They act as a continuation in the level, so you won't have to restart the level all over again. What sucks about these, however, is when you save your game and turn off the console to take a break, and when you come back to the game, all the Wumpies you have collected just disappear out of thin air. This really blows, and it does beg the question on why even bother collecting them if they're not gonna stay with you at all. A big feature this game has is Cusco can drink some potions to change to a different animal, from a turtle, who moves very slowly but makes up for the race segments, a frog who leaps very far depending on how filled the meter is, and finally a bunny who can jump pretty high to reach the next platform. They pretty much serve as a gimmick in the game, and to be honest, I would have liked to have seen more different animals you could potentially play as. Maybe a jaguar, for example, so I don't have to get chased by them all the bloody time. There are recognizable characters that'll make an appearance here, while others are pretty, well, I don't want to say weird, but random. Yeah, random is probably the word I'm searching for. You have noticeable characters like Pacha and the two kids as mentioned earlier, as well as the annoying squirrel, Yzma, and her right-hand man Kronk, who will show up later on in the game. But they also introduce brand new characters as well. I'd say it's a good idea because it keeps things fresh, but these encounters can be very random. Like helping a person out finding his underwear, helping an elderly man find his bunny, another older man who gives out hints and advice for different things you might come across later in the game.
If I had 4 balloons, I'd use them to get out of here.
Yeah, I feel you, buddy. And you have a kid who is supposed to be Cusco's rival, but Cusco doesn't take him seriously as you continually destroy his llama bike. He does come back more often than usual compared to other new characters to try and one-up him.
Let's see how Cusco fares in my new llama bike!
These new character personalities can come out of nowhere, but it never becomes boring in the game. It does get interesting seeing some new faces, until you witness Condor Man.
I am Condor Man. Tweet tweet.
Yeah, I haven't studied the language of a bird, so I haven't got the slightest idea of what he just said.
Tweet tweet! Who the hell are you supposed to be? Tweet tweet. Tweet 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 tweet. I have absolutely no idea what you are saying. Get out of this house right now. Out of this house.
Oh, tweet. Tweet.
Yeah, that's right. Go, get out of here. No one wants you here. Go flap your wings or move your arms around. I don't know. You can use your imagination. Then I'm supposedly flying off.
If there is a massive highlight the game has, it's got to be the music. The soundtrack here is not only very catchy, but also enjoyable and somewhat atmospheric. The music, I'll admit, can feel repetitive as some of the OST plays in different areas depending on what level, but regardless, it still sounds nice. I don't often do this nowadays, but here's just an example as I show off my personal favorite song in the game. The pacing of this game does run smoothly until the third act of the game. I'm not sure why, but the third act when you finally enter the palace feels rushed, especially when you hear the same music as heard before, and even listening to the same dialogue all the way back in chapter 1. So as for the bosses, they're not great. Most of the time you are facing Yzma in different segues to move on to the next chapter. To me, they don't feel like bosses, only small segments to go through. And that goes the same with Kronk as well, as you race down to the bottom of the hill and collecting the most items in the ice skating challenge. And as for Yzma, you don't technically attack Yzma as you hit the blow up animal balloons to unlock a pathway and get her to throw potions at the pads to open up a door. And that was the Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, it's a pretty outdated video game, and sure it may be another generic 3D platformer, but compared to the Disney platform games I've played like Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise and Treasure Planet, this is by far the best one I've experienced. It accomplishes what I want out of it, following the events of the movie, but also not afraid to try out new ideas. And new ideas are exactly what we got. Even if it doesn't work at times, at least they gave it a go. The controls are good, levels are nice, and the soundtrack sounds enjoyable. And while this game does have its fair share of issues, I believe it never distracted me from my overall experience the game tries to present. So I figured I would do another racing game, and after spinning the real roulette, it just so happens to have landed on Cars Beta National, of all the games listed. Thank God it didn't land on Hummer's Badland, it probably would have been the end of me if it did. This game is a direct sequel to Disney-Pixar Cars the video game, a game I've checked out a few years back under the name Cheese and Crackers, and again, link in the description if you're interested.
Well hey, at least you're not playing a Disney tie-in game, am I right?
But basically, to keep it brief, I thought while the game did capture the Disney feel with its cutscenes and wide range of characters, it was an average racing game at the end of the day. So let's see if the sequel, Beta National, can improve on some of the elements the first game lacked. But knowing that Mater is taking front and center on the PlayStation 2 cover, I can tell things are going to be interesting. That also reminds me, I am covering the PlayStation 2 edition of the game because I didn't know until recently that there is a PlayStation 3 edition of that game. So we boot the game up and here's that lamp with the Pixar logo in front. And while I'm here, I'm noticing something weird. I think I might have accidentally put in Cars the movie game instead due to seeing the same opening as the first game. Oh wait, it does say Made National here. All I can say is, wow, talk about deja vu. I honestly thought I mistaken Made National for Cars the video game because they're both similar, from the opening introduction, the still image with the game's logo, the theme song, and hell, even the menu layout is the same as well. I know the phrase being if it ain't broke don't fix it, but one of the things I like to look out for in a sequel is if the game tries to be bigger and more original than the previous game. Not to be identical. Even simply altering the opening menu really goes a long way to stand out. Already we are on a rocky start, but after naming our profile, let's see how story mode fares. The game opens up with, oh Jesus Christ almighty, it's Mater Gator. Mater explains in front of the camera that a brand new stadium is being built right in the heart of Radiator Springs, and an invitation has been sent out to all the best racers around the world to come on down and compete in the upcoming Mater National Championships, hosted by Mater and Lightning McQueen. And so the main objective is roughly the same as the first game, as you partake in races and events to progress the story, until eventually the new stadium is finally built. The story overall is pretty basic, not really a whole lot to say. It does feel rushed as they try to explain the plot within the first 90 seconds and hope you'll be able to catch on, but I will say this, I'll definitely take this storyline over the actual Cars 2 movie any day of the week. What I do enjoy about the story is the new characters you'll be able to witness. Racers from Germany, Italy, Japan, England, and Sweden all gather around Radiator Springs to try and be the #1 best racer. These new characters bring in a lot of diversity, which really complements the Cars universe. It's a shame, however, that the new characters are generic as they come, as they all don't have much personality. They all have the same motive with "I'm a race car and I'm here to race," but with a different accent. No way. Is that Mike and Sully from the movie that made them famous? Monster Truck Incorporated? And what sucks with the addition of these new characters, some well-known characters have to be left aside and removed from the game, like Sally and Chick Hicks to name a few, which is a bummer. Or I should say, bumper. I won't spend too much time on the graphics, as again, the next-gen hardware of the PlayStation 3 is much superior, whilst I have the PlayStation 2 version, and it's the same look as the first game. Not bad, but could be better. So here we have the open world sandbox. Let's not waste time and jump into exploring. You know, Lightning, when I said jump into exploring, this isn't what I had in mind. In Mater National, you still explore Radiator Springs, Ornament Valley, and Taflin Pass, just as before, and the open sandbox structure is a bit better in my opinion. Sure, it's more smaller in scale due to the blockage of the races, which I will get to later, but if the open world bits and pieces have to have some sacrifice in order to produce better racetracks, then I'm okay with it. For starters, the map marker is much more visible, so now I can look over and know exactly where I need to go. Also, with each race and minigame before starting the event, they have their own space and they don't share the same spots. So no more driving over to an icon and scrolling through to find the right track, as now selecting a new event will save me from wasting time if I mistakenly chose the wrong event. It's almost like the developers really took the consumer's feedback and did what they can to improve on it in the next game. And that's something I can appreciate. There's also collectibles to find around, like paint jobs to customize Lightning's car, and wheel sets. If you collect all 4 tires in the set, you'll be able to select them and Lightning will wear them. I will admit, a couple of downsides about the open world here is that in each loading screen before starting an event, you have the same loading screen depending on the location. Compared to the previous game, each race and minigame had a unique loading screen, representing that event and bringing in some nice creative loading screens. A very minor issue, but you do notice these things in comparison. And also, no music plays when you are exploring around, which feels a bit quiet and awkward when you're casually driving around. Now, imagine if you're playing through a Spyro game and no music plays in the level. Pretty depressing stuff. The races themselves are also better. It's a lot more off-road, better layout, and more set pieces to check out, like Ornament Valley Airport when there's an airport to drive in, Real Well Circuit and there's somewhat of a mine area to check out, and this section here when you have to watch out for the tornadoes, look out Lightning! And what I like about those races is they all feel different and you don't drive through the same roads again. Comparing it to Cars the video game, the races felt almost like a constant repeat because I'm racing in the same area I've already raced in. I believe there were 2 races that were nearly the same, just in reverse order. So the new design of these tracks are a nice welcome. I didn't mind the Rust Bucket races, despite playing as Mater Nader, which reminds me of the fact that later on in the story, Mater Slater has developed a crush on one of the opponents, and the story is being built around the Rust Bucket races, and yeah, can we not? I get that you need somewhat of a secondary story to balance the main story out, but I'm just not interested in it. In case you haven't noticed it by now, I do not understand the hype around Mater Bader.
If it isn't my best friend. What's going on?
There's also relay races. You race on a specific track, and just before you make it past a lap, you tag in one of your mates and you can take control of the next car. I don't really like them, and that is due to perhaps the developers were trying a little too much on creating new ideas, and the relay races didn't sit well for me. I honestly think the game would have been just fine without them. And once you have completed enough races, you can drive in the new stadium races, and they are good to race on. And each time you come back to that stadium, you have a new track and a new strategy to try and win first place. And you also have monster truck races, a feature that looks pretty sick at first glance, but it's a shame that the controls suck major donkey ass. It is really tough to power slide, and what's up with driving over these portals? They seem pointless to me. After trying it for around a minute, I just quit the game mode and moved on. Not worth my time. It also didn't help that Mater later had to be the center of attention once again.
Oh, I want to be a monster too.
Oh, wah. Go suck on some carrots, why don't ya? However, as I was playing through the game, I noticed the controls and the hit physics are still the same, meaning that I don't always have full control of Lightning with his movements and drifting. Sure, the power sliding is a little better, but it still won't work as well with the other sharp turns. It's almost like I'm experiencing the same game as the previous title. And as for the car physics, what's up, dude? Man, that never gets old. All jokes aside, I'm still not a fan of them, as explained before, that it doesn't feel realistic when crashing around. Almost feeling like bumper cars, if you will.
Kaping!
Kaping Lightning? Really? It should be more like... Kawow. Sorry, I had to, the joke was right there. So I should mention the minigames, and they're okay. There are a few ones I like. For example, Fuel Frenzy, when you have to drive through a race and collect fuel to continue the race. If you can't collect any in time, the race ends. There's also Ramon's Rim... There's also Ramon's Fuck. English, damn it. English. There's also Ramon's Screw it. There's also this minigame where you match the buttons together to earn points. I'm getting real bad vibes here because Ramona's doing his mating call dance. Also, this reminds me, and it has to be questioned once again. How do cars actually do it? And as different these minigames are, I like some of them, while others not so much, and it does come from personal preference. Although tractor tipping is back, so that's nice. The OST here is mixed to me. Gone is the pop rock genre and replaced by bland techno songs, plus some instrumental pieces from the previous game. And even though Life is a Highway is finally in a Cars game, praise be to Car Jesus, but it is the only good song here. And when you take one good song and put it next to the rest of the generic songs, I'll always be putting on Life is a Highway, no matter what. And of course, like the first game, when grabbing enough points throughout story mode, you can unlock cars as well as art so you can view concepts during the production of the game. If that is something you are into. Cars Made International was a game I didn't think of highly back in the day, and now fast forward to today, at least I can appreciate the improvements with the open world and the races themselves. But it doesn't mean that it's a good game. The controls handling is still the same, the story felt rushed, the main menu is lazy, and the new characters are somewhat boring to say the least. Something triggered my mind as I was playing this game, and here's a debate for you all. As I was playing through Made International from start to finish, I couldn't help but notice that I get reminded about Cars the video game every so often. From the look of the game, to the design sets of Radiator Springs, and I have believed I've come up with the conclusion that this is not a sequel. Cars Made International feels more like DLC content. You might as well should have called this game Cars 1.5, the video game if you will. And while it's not exactly a massive issue, it does bring this game down to having its own identity and branching out. And it's probably one of the game's biggest flaws in my opinion. So now every time I play Made International for the foreseeable future, I'm always going to have constant reminders and be thinking about the first installment, which shouldn't be the case for video game sequels. You are more than welcome to give this game a go if you like, but I don't think it's anything special in my eyes. And as far as Cars Race-O-Rama is concerned, well, that's a story for another time.